Let's start with the topic number 1.1.7, which is the comparative study between the state and government, state and society, state and association. So, in this topic of module 1 from political science, we are looking between what a state is, what a government is, society, and association. So you are going to compare state against all of these other institutions. Let's start with the state. What is a state? The state is the most powerful political institution in society, but it coexists with other important entities like government, society, and various associations. Without state is made up of all of these, and the state is the supreme. Above the state, no government is there, no society is above the state, and so on. Though these concepts are interconnected and often work together, they are not the same. A comparative study will help us to understand the unique features of the state and how it differs from these other entities. Let's look at the distinction between what a state and government is. A state is a permanent political institution with sovereignty, defined territory, population, and government. Whereas a government is an agency or machinery through which the will of the state is formulated and enforced. That is, the laws are formulated and enforced. So government is a machinery or an agency of the state, whereas state has these four basic elements that we studied earlier. Now let us look at the differences between the state and the government. Let's look at the nature. State is a permanent entity, whereas government is temporary and changeable. So we see in India, India is a state, India is permanent, whereas governments come and go. So we have Congress government, we have BJP government, and so on. They keep changing. They get elected, and they can be dissolved, they can be changed. What is the scope of a state? The scope of the state, that is, what is its function. So it is more broader, which means it includes the population, the territory, and sovereignty, and government as well. Whereas government's scope is narrower, that is only the administrative organ of the state. Its only function is to administer the state. Sovereignty. State is a sovereign entity. It holds ultimate sovereignty, whereas government exercises power. Government is never a sovereign, but it exercises power on behalf of the state. So we do sometimes say that we have a sovereign government, and sometimes we interchange the word state and government, but they are separate and independent, although interdependent, but not dependent on each other, rather interdependent. Next is continuity. State continues even if the government changes. I've already given the example. Whereas a government changes through elections, revolutions, etc. And final aspect is the identity. The state represents the entire political community, whereas the government represents the ruling authority only. These are the main differences, which are 5 of them, which is the nature. That is, state is permanent, government is temporary. Scope is more broader for the state. State includes the government, so it is more broader, whereas government's scope is narrower. That is only administrative aspect. State holds sovereignty, whereas government exercises power on behalf of the state. The state continues even if the government changes, but The government changes through election and revolutions, and state is representing the entire community or people, whereas government represents only the ruling authority. We have an example. India as a state remains permanent, but its government changes. Example from UPA to NDA. Next, let us look at the difference between what a state is and the society. A state, as we already know, is a politically organized entity with law-making authority confined to a definite territory, whereas society is a more broader term, including all social, cultural, religious, and economic relationships among people. Let us look at the core differences between state and society. Let us look at the aspect nature. State is a political organization, whereas society is a social organization. State is a political organization, whereas society is a social organization. The purpose of the state is to maintain law and order and protect the rights of its citizens. Whereas in society, the purpose of the society is to promote cooperation and social development. This is the main difference. The scope of the state is limited to a defined territory, whereas the scope of a society is much broader and includes all human relationships. State's authority is to exercise legal coercion. Coercion means force, legal force. So that is its authority. State can enforce laws. It can coerce people to act and behave in a certain way. Whereas society relies more on moral and social values and norms. So the difference between the state and a society is that state is more bent towards legal force, whereas society is more bent towards moral values. The state origin came into existence much later, and society is much older than the state. So these are the five distinctions between what a state and a society is. Let's look at one example. Indian society includes various castes, religions, and cultures, whereas the state governs this society through law. Next, let's look at state and association. State is a sovereign, all-encompassing organization, whereas association is a group of, the word associate means itself means a group. So, association is a group of individuals united for specific purposes. For example, clubs, trade unions, or religious bodies. Religious bodies would include trusts. Now let us cover the differences between the state and the association. What is the purpose of state? State's purpose is general, that is making laws, enforcing those laws, maintaining order, giving justice and welfare of its population. Whereas the purpose of an association is very specific and narrow. That is, it could be religious purpose, that is, the association of people can come together or a group of people can come together to form religious associations, cultural associations, or economic associations. The power of the state and the power of the association. The state's power is, we already know, it is sovereign and has supreme authority, whereas the power of an association is a limited power under the state law. That is, the associations are controlled under the state laws. State's membership is compulsory and mandatory. By birth, the membership of the state, that is, one can become a citizen of a state by either by birth or taking the citizenship of the country, and it is compulsory. Whereas in an association, the membership is voluntary. The scope of the state is universal and all inclusive, whereas the scope of Association is particular and limited. States makes, creates, and enforces laws through coercion. Coercion, as I mentioned, means force. It has legal force. Whereas associations cannot enforce laws. They can make rules, but they cannot make laws. And associations must follow the laws of the state, of the country. For example, a sports association, like we have cricket associations or other clubs or trust, they organize tournaments and events. So this is an association. However, it cannot make or enforce laws like a state. It can have its own rules which are only enforceable within that association. Let's conclude. So the state stands apart from the government, the society, and the associations in terms of its authority, its permanence, that is its nature, its scope and power. While all these entities contribute to the development and functioning of human life, the state holds a unique position due to its sovereign power and legal authority. Understanding these distinctions will help us in grasping the structure of the political systems and their relationship with the society. Thank you very much for listening. Take care. Bye bye.